You know that story of Moses that you learned in Sunday school? There is a monumental detail in it that you probably never told. Israel's greatest liberator was married to a black woman. Yes, a princess from Ethiopia, whose influence was vital, but who was systematically erased from centuries of Christian art and preaching. Why did they hide this woman? Today I will show you how the Bible records the exact moment when God punished racism against her, and why this truth was buried for so long. If you seek an honest faith and without fear of questioning, leave a like and subscribe. Let's unearth the story of the woman that Europe tried to make us forget. In the vast deserts of Midian, where the warm breath of the wind carried with it ancient stories and secrets whispered through the sands, Moses had found not only refuge, but a new life. There, under the watchful eye of the ancient gods and the Spirit who dwells among the stars, he had made his home among the sons of Jethro, the wise priest. Zipporah, his first wife, had been a link between his past as a prince and his destiny as a prophet. But in the shadows of the mountains, where the echoes of ancestral drums still resonated, another union was being formed, woven by the threads of destiny and African blood, a union that would unite two lands, two times, and two destinies. The Cushite woman, whose presence was like the strength of the rivers that cut through the land of Cush, had brought with her not only the color of the deep night on her skin, but also the wisdom of the ancient people, the dance of the stars, and the song of the birds that crossed the sky at dawn. She was an enigma, a mystery wrapped in veils of silk and golden dust, a priestess whose name was whispered with reverence and awe. His arrival at Moses' side did not go unnoticed, as his spirit was a flame that illuminated the darkest corners of human doubts. Miriam and Aaron, brothers by blood and mission, felt the weight of the ages in their hearts when they saw Moses next to the woman whose ancestry was like the fertile soil that gives life to the ancient baobab trees. In their minds, tradition and prejudice intertwined like serpents, whispering words of discontent and unrest. It was not faith that moved them in this criticism, but the shadows of fear and the unknown, the fear of what they could not control or understand. Behold, in the heavens, the clouds stirred like spirits in a ritual dance, and the voice of the Most High resounded like thunder, cutting the veil of ignorance with the blade of justice. Who is the man who speaks without knowledge? Who is he who dares to question what I, the Eternal, have united? Thus the earth shook, and leprosy, like a sheet of ice, covered Miriam's once healthy skin, a tangible reminder of divine wrath, a mark left upon pride and intolerance. For 7 days, like the full moon completing its cycle, Miriam was purified, separated from the people for her transgression. And while she bowed under the weight of her punishment, the people of Israel waited, camped in the shadow of the mountain, learning through their sisters' suffering that love knows no borders, neither land nor color. Thus, the story of the Cushite woman, the wife of Moses, echoes in the songs of the elders, a reminder of the power of love that crosses time and distance, defying the conventions of a society that often forgets to look beyond appearances. She remains a figure shrouded in mystery and strength, celebrated by those who recognize the true meaning of sacred union, where spirit and flesh meet under the protection of the divine. In the vastness of the desert, where the golden sun kissed the sands and the wind whispered songs from time immemorial, stories emerge that challenge the fabric of reality with their mixture of truth and myth. Moses' Cushite wife, whose name was not recorded in the sacred scriptures, remained shrouded in a veil of mystery and reverence. It was a presence that disturbed the calm waters of tradition, like a rock thrown into a crystal-clear lake. The absence of his name in the scriptures was in itself an enigma that echoed through the centuries, provoking curiosity and speculation among the wise and learned. Strange signs began to manifest themselves, like omens that foreshadow an imminent change. In the silence of the starry nights, when the constellations told stories of gods and heroes, whispers arose about the true identity of this woman whose skin was like the endless night. Some said she was a vision, a figure who walked between worlds, connecting the old with the new, the visible with the hidden. Others believed that she was a princess from distant lands, a daughter of kings who brought with her the wisdom of the people on the banks of the great African rivers. In scholarly circles, fervent debates were raging. There were those who believed that the Cushite woman was actually Zipporah under another name, a theory supported by ties of blood and culture between the Midianites and the people of Cush. However, rabbinic traditions and ancient manuscripts such as the revered Sefer Hayasha told a different story, a story of love and courage, of fated encounters and heavenly alliances. During Moses' youth, before his life was transformed by divine calling, he is said to have led a campaign in the Ethiopian lands where the princess, enchanted by his leadership and indomitable spirit, fell madly in love with him. This narrative, preserved in Ethiopian traditions, told of encounters under the vast sky and the union of two souls that defied time and space. It was a story that the desert winds carried, but that the pages of Western history hesitated to record. The Cushite woman, with her enigmatic presence, defied convention, inserting herself as a central figure in a story that many preferred to keep untainted by the diversity of the world. Miriam's punishment, a divine act that echoed like thunder, was a stark reminder of the power of transcendent love and acceptance. The Eternal, in his unfathomable wisdom, showed that the union sealed under his gaze knew no boundaries of color or origin. The leprosy that covered Miriam was not just a physical affliction, but a spiritual mark, a reminder of the error of judging that which was sacred and preordained. Thus, the Cushite woman, shrouded in mystery and majesty, continued to be a figure of fascination and admiration. His story, although erased from official records, lived on in the hearts of those who understood the true essence of Moses' union with a princess of African lineage. It was a reminder that, in the great book of destiny, the pages whispered secrets that only the wise and the pure of heart could hear. And so, under the starry sky, the story of love and sacrifice continued to be told, passed from generation to generation, like an eternal flame that illuminates the darkness. In the land where the sun bathes the sand with its golden embrace, where ancestral spirits dance in the shadows cast by the great baobab trees, the destiny of Moses and his Cushite wife became a plot woven by the invisible fingers of the Almighty. In the murmur of the wind among the dunes that keep secrets of the weather, a tension was building, like clouds that portend storms. Miriam and Aaron, even though they were children of the same mother, carrying the same blood that runs through Moses' veins, felt distant, not only in the flesh, but in the spirit. Moses' love for the woman whose skin reflected the starry night was a spark that ignited his uncertainties and hidden ambitions. The Cushite woman, with her silent majesty, was a mirror that reflected their weaknesses, and their hearts were entangled in envy and prejudice like roots choked by drought. Ancient drums resonated in the ether, summoning the forces of the universe to watch the impending confrontation. Miriam and Aaron, moved by a force they did not understand, confronted Moses, not only questioning his choice of heart, but also his position as spokesman for the Eternal. Their voices, filled with discontent, echoed across the vastness of the desert, a lament that reverberated like thunder. Did the Lord speak only through Moses? They questioned, their words poisoned by doubt and greed. But the High One, who sees all things, who hears the whispers of the heart and the cries of the soul, did not remain silent. His presence descended like lightning, cutting through the sky, calling the three brothers out of the tent. And there, under the watchful gaze of the stars, the Eternal spoke, his voice like a lion's roar, powerful and unbreakable. "Moses," he proclaimed, "is my faithful servant, the one with whom I speak face to face, to whom I have entrusted my plans and secrets. How dare you, Miriam and Aaron, rise up against the one I have chosen?" And the earth shook, echoes of a primordial power that does not tolerate injustice, that does not bow to prejudice. Leprosy covered Miriam, a cruel irony, a burden of whiteness, contrasting with the ebony of the Cushite that bothered her so much. Aaron, overcome with terror, begged for forgiveness, his tears mingling with the dust of the earth, while Moses, his heart heavy with compassion, interceded for his sister. For 7 days, like the tides that follow the lunar cycle, Miriam remained isolated, purifying herself under the light of the stars and the gaze of the community. The desert, witness to so many stories, kept this one more in its sands, a lesson that love transcends the skin, that the divine unites what men try to separate. And so the Cushite woman, silent in her dignity, stood beside Moses, an uncrowned queen whose legacy was inscribed in the stars and in the hearts that understood true sacred union. The message from the Almighty was clear, resonating through the generations. In His creation there is no place for divisions that are not natural, for barriers erected by human hands. The union of Moses and his wife Cushita was the symbol of a love that defies time, that crosses the desert of ignorance and blossoms in the oasis of acceptance. So, under a sky that makes no distinction between night and day, the story of Moses' wife continues to be told, an eternal melody in the song of the winds, reminding everyone that true greatness lies in acceptance and love that embraces all the colors of creation. The destiny of Israel was changed, not by the sword, but by the gentle hand of diversity, by the union of souls destined to meet under the benevolent gaze of the Eternal. In the mists of time, where the echo of ancient stories intertwines with the narratives of men, the figure of the Cushite woman, the wife of Moses, was overshadowed. In the dance of the ages, where cultures meet and separate like rivers that cross, this woman's story disappeared from the pages of the books that shaped the thoughts of nations. The ancestral breath that carried his name was drowned by the wind of change, which swept away the testimony of his existence. As Christianity spread, its Jewish roots becoming distant memories, the woman with skin like night was silenced. His presence, once celebrated in the stories of the ancients, was erased from the chronicles that sought to rewrite the destiny of Moses and his people. Art, which must capture the essence of truth, has become an accomplice to this forgetfulness. The paintings that emerged in the Renaissance glorifying biblical figures portrayed Moses as a fair-skinned man, a reflection of the European ideal. Zipporah, his first wife, was also portrayed this way, and the Cushite woman whose strength and wisdom echoed throughout the lands of Cush was relegated to the shadows. Theologians, with their sharp words and selective interpretations, shaped the scriptures to minimize the impact of Moses' true union. Shrouded in their own agendas, they reinterpreted Miriam's criticisms, shifting the focus from the color of her skin to the fact that she was a foreigner. Still others questioned the need for a second marriage, disregarding the spiritual and divine connection between Moses and the African woman. The voices that suggested that the Cushite and Zipporah were one spoke about an attempt to erase the diversity that the Eternal himself had sanctioned. However, in the lands of Ethiopia, where the winds have not silenced and the fertile soil still brings the voices of the past, the story of the Cushite woman has prospered. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, guardian of ancient traditions, has preserved the narrative of a union that transcended barriers. There she was honored as a vital part of Israel's history, a queen whose legacy could not be erased by time or the hands of men. The erasure of its history in the West was not just a fluke of fate, but a calculated act, because accepting that Moses, leader of Israel and interlocutor of the Eternal, was united with a black African woman would imply a re-evaluation of the notions of racial superiority that permeated European thought. To accept such a union was to challenge power structures that were based on racial divisions, to accept that love and divine choice knew no boundaries. The Cushite woman therefore stands as a powerful symbol of resistance and truth. His story, although silenced in many corners of the world, continues to be a reminder that divine love does not discriminate, that the destiny traced by the Almighty cannot be changed by the hands of men. And so, under the eternal gaze of the heavens, the wife of Moses persists, a silent but powerful presence, a light that shines through the ages, reminding all that true unity is one that embraces the diversity of the world. In the vastness of the cosmos, where the stars trace their intricate and unfathomable paths, the story of Moses' Cushite wife reveals itself as an enigma that endures, a secret kept by time itself. In the dance of the ages, where the wind carries with it the songs of the ancestors and the whispers of the gods, lies the truth about this woman, a truth that shines like pure gold amid the dust of oblivion. The Cushite woman, whose spirit resonated with the strength of rivers and the wisdom of ancient people, was more than a presence at Moses' side. She was a force that shaped destinies, a voice that whispered advice in moments of doubt, a light that guided through the darkness of the desert. The conflict that arises from this erasure is a reflection of the shadows that inhabit the human heart, shadows made of prejudice and fear of the unknown. For if the Cushite woman was so important that the Eternal himself raised his voice in her defense, why then were her name, her contributions, her very existence relegated to the dark corners of history? The answer is rooted in the stones of arrogance and ignorance, in the walls built to separate, not unite. The acceptance of a black African woman as an advisor and driving force in the Moses narrative would be a recognition of the centrality of Africa, of its wisdom, of its power, a recognition that would shake the foundations of a theology shaped to exclude and subjugate. Ethiopian traditions, guardians of these truths, speak of a woman whose wisdom was like a balm for the afflicted, whose strategies were fundamental for resistance during the plagues of Egypt, whose knowledge of herbs and healing brought relief to the wandering people in the desert. These are stories that were not inscribed on the tablets of Western history, but that live in songs and stories passed from mouth to mouth, generation after generation, by people who understand that true strength knows no boundaries of color or origin. The West, with its myopic view, chose not to listen to these truths, preferring to maintain a narrative that erased diversity, that silenced voices that did not fit into its narrow vision of the world. But the Bible, this book of mysteries and revelations, did not erase the presence of the Cushite woman. In Numbers 12, the story is clear as the noonday sky, a chronicle of the divine defense of a woman whose importance resonated in the plans of the Most High. Miriam's punishment, a tangible manifestation of divine wrath, was a reminder that love and acceptance are the true paths to wisdom and peace. However, the Church over the centuries chose to look away, preferring to focus on other narratives, on other stories that did not challenge its status quo. The Cushite wife, that figure of majesty and mystery, has become a footnote, a shadow in the great theater of history, when she should be celebrated as a protagonist. But not all shadows are eternal. In the hearts of those who seek truth, who understand the power of love that transcends time and space, the story of Moses' wife continues to shine, a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that the divine does not distinguish between the children of the earth. So beneath the endless sky where the constellations continue their eternal dance, the story of Moses' Cushite wife is told and retold, a gentle melody in the song of the winds, a truth that cannot be erased. And on the desert sands where eternity meets the present, she stands a strong and indomitable figure, a symbol of the endurance of love and unity, a testimony to the power of the eternal that unites what is just and true. In the eternal dance of the universe, where the stars trace their ancient roots and the desert winds carry the stories of times gone by, the deep connection between Israel and Africa emerges like a golden thread, woven into the cosmic tapestry of destiny. Moses' Cushite wife, erased from the narratives that shaped the perception of the world, represents more than a forgotten figure. It is a symbol of a story that extends far beyond the shores of the Mediterranean, a story that pulses with the life of the savannas and the wisdom of the rivers that cut through the African continent. The consequences of this erasure are profound and resonate through the ages, like the echo of a drum that never ceases. By hiding the African presence in the biblical narrative, a limited vision was perpetuated, a vision that isolated the sacred figures from the ties that bound them to the land of Cush, Egypt, and Ethiopia. It was as if a vital part of the divine symphony was silenced, depriving generations of hearing the full melody, a melody that celebrates the diversity and unity of the children of the earth under the benevolent gaze of the Eternal. The examples are many and powerful. Joseph, whose destiny was intertwined with Egypt by marrying Asenate, daughter of a priest of the ancient gods, forged an alliance that symbolized the union of knowledge and cultures. Moses, raised in the courts of Pharaoh, nurtured by the Nile, and united to a Cushite woman, personified the fusion of lineages and destinies. Solomon, the wise king, being ensnared by the charms of the Queen of Sheba, brought to light a love story that echoes from the shores of the Red Sea to the peaks of the Ethiopian mountains. But these stories, golden weaves in the great tapestry of humanity, have been overshadowed. The systematic erasure of these connections generated a narrative where the Bible became, for many, a story of distant lands, disconnected from African soil. This distortion has not only affected historical understanding, but also the identity of millions. Africans and people of African descent were led to believe that they were on the margins of sacred history, that their presence was secondary, a shadow in the light of a faith that seemed not to belong to them. However, the truth is different, a truth that beats like an ancestral heart fed by the waters of the Nile and the rains of the savannas. Since the Exodus, since the days when the people of Israel found refuge in the land of the Pharaohs, Africa has been present, not as a distant setting, but as a protagonist in the divine narrative. The faith that many believed did not belong to them is, in fact, a faith that has always embraced it. From the moment Moses, with the help of the Cushite woman, led his people through the desert, guided by the hand of the Eternal. Under stars that make no distinction between north and south, east and west, the story of Moses' wife reminds us that love and acceptance are the true keys to unlocking the mystery of creation. It calls us to celebrate the diversity intrinsic to humanity, to recognize that each color, each culture, each story is a note in the great symphony of the cosmos. And so in this eternal dance, where time bows before love and truth, the African presence in the biblical narrative continues to shine, a beacon of hope and unity, a testimony to the power of the Eternal who continually calls us to remember who we are, where we came from, and where, together, we are destined to go. In the vastness of time, where stories intertwine like the roots of a great baobab tree, truth emerges, defying the winds of oblivion. Today, in academies and communities, in temples and study halls, new light shines on the ancient scriptures. Like a river returning to its original course, the narrative of Moses' Cushite wife is rescued from the shadows, brought to the fore by those who refuse to let the currents of history carry it away from the heart of Scripture. Scholars of all colors and backgrounds come together in a common quest, a journey to rediscover the richness that has always been there, but has been obscured by narrow lenses of interpretation. These guardians of truth, like the griots of old, sing the stories that have been silenced, revealing the diversity intrinsic to the Bible, an intertwined tapestry of cultures, histories, and destinies that cross continents and eras. In study halls, where ancient wisdom meets the yearning for the new, voices rise to celebrate the African presence in the scriptures. The Book of Numbers, a text that has always been visible but rarely truly seen, now shines with new colors and meanings. The story of Moses' Cushite wife, a testimony of love and endurance, resonates like a drum that never ceases, a call for all to see what was always there, a clear and divine defense of a woman whose identity was intertwined with the African soil. For young Africans and their descendants, this rediscovery is a beacon that lights the way back to their own spiritual roots. For the first time, many see their traits reflected in sacred stories, realize that they do not need to adapt their identities to fit the narrative of faith. They discover that the divine has always celebrated diversity, that God's love has always extended to all lands and peoples. This revelation strengthens faith, rooting it more deeply in the fertile soil of acceptance and unity. However, as in all journeys of revelation, resistance persists. There are those who prefer the shadows of illusion, who still seek to minimize or deny African connections in sacred scriptures. They cling to a Europeanized vision that comforts their already formed perceptions, ignoring the call of the Almighty who has always sought to unite, not divide. But the truth, like water that finds its way through the narrowest crevices, cannot be contained. Every time an honest look rests on Numbers 12, the evidence shines. The Almighty, in His infinite justice, punished prejudice, elevated the dignity of a black woman, and left this act recorded for all generations. Thus, under the sky that never forgets, where the stars continue to narrate their ancestral stories, the truth about Moses' Cushite wife resurfaces, like the sun that is reborn every morning. It is a powerful reminder that faith, in its purest form, is inclusive, it is loving, it is eternal. And as this story is told and retold, as the voices of the wise and the young unite in a celebratory song, resistance will be overcome, and the truth, like an eternal flame, will light the way for all who seek to see. In the vastness of the cosmos, where every star is a keeper of ancient secrets and every breath of the wind carries the wisdom of the ancestors, rises the question that resonates through the ages. What does it mean, after all, to accept that the truth was veiled, that the narrative was shaped by hands that feared the light of inclusion? On every page of sacred scripture, a story of unity and diversity waits to be revealed by those who dare to look beyond the shadows cast by prejudice. Moses' Cushite wife, a transcendent symbol of love and courage, emerges as a central figure whose erasure reflects not just a historical error, but a profound spiritual injustice. This is a truth that, once recognized, transforms our understanding of the divine, the world, and ourselves. By accepting that the Bible has been filtered through a lens of racism, we recognize that humanity has been deprived of a richer narrative, a richer testimony, complete work of the Most High. The impact of this acceptance is profound and far-reaching. It redefines the way we read Scripture, dissolving boundaries that should never have existed. He leads us to see God not as a distant, segregated figure, but as a living presence who celebrates the diversity of his creation with joy and justice. Africa, in all its majesty and complexity, reveals itself not only as a distant setting of ancient stories, but as a vibrant protagonist, a sacred land deeply intertwined with the destiny of the people of Israel. For those of African descent, this revelation is a reconnection with a spiritual heritage that was forgotten but never lost. It is a testimony that they were never secondary in God's story, but were always at the heart of his redemptive work. From Egypt, from Cush, from the days of the Exodus, their stories and their contributions have been essential, woven into the very fabric of the divine narrative. The woman that the Eternal defended in Numbers 12, with her skin reflecting the depth of the night, becomes a heroine for all generations, a living proof of the love that transcends appearance and centers on the spirit. May this story, now rediscovered, shine like a new star in the firmament of faith. May she inspire not only the faith community, but all those who seek truth and justice. May Black children grow up knowing that God not only sees them, but values and defends them, as he always did with Moses' wife. And may the Church, in its search for redemption, recognize the error of erasure and embrace the beauty of diversity that has always been present in the Scriptures. Because the truth, once revealed, cannot be ignored. It demands to be seen, to be heard, to be celebrated. And so, under the watchful eye of the cosmos, the story of Moses' Cushite wife resurfaces, a flame that lights the way to a deeper, more inclusive understanding of divine love. May this truth be told and retold, an eternal melody that resonates in the hearts of all who seek the light, a reminder that in the grand plan of the Eternal, every soul has a place, every story has a value, and every color is a vital part of the rainbow of creation.